In IT, we are always under pressure to do more with less. Less time, fewer resources, and we are expected to continue to excel and take on more and more. And there's really only two ways to get it done. Either you need more people to come in and help to do all of that work, or we need a better way of doing it. And that better way is automation. And when it comes to doing automation in the cloud, we have a lot of options. There are things like PowerShell, the Azure CLI, ARM templates, and also third-party resources like Chef, Puppet, Ansible, Terraform, and the list goes on and on. Azure itself has some very powerful automation tools, and we want to talk about one of those today. And this is the Azure Automation account. Azure Automation delivers cloud-based automation without the need of any other configuration servers or devices running in your environment, and it's one of the platform services which not only works in the cloud but also extends to non-Azure environments. And the Azure Automation account has several hero services associated with it, such as configuration management, update management, inventory and change tracking, and the ability to use runbooks, which then give you a blank canvas to do absolutely anything that you want. And the particular problem that we want to solve today is one of cost. You see, because you have an Azure Automation account and this runs as a platform service, that means that you do not need another VM or cluster of VMs sitting there in the cloud consuming resources just waiting for an automation job to happen. So we're going to not only use that to reduce our overall cost, but then we're going to leverage it to reduce cost even further and use something called a solution so that we can start and stop our Azure virtual machines. I'm Dean Cifola, and this is the Azure Academy. So as we get started today, we're going to go over to the Azure documentation, and the reason why I like to do this, as always, is because I want you to know where the information is so that you can keep on learning. So in the docs under Management and Governance, we'll find the Automation account, and when we open that up, you'll see several different blocks here on the intro screen. And the one that we want is down here in the Deploy blocks to start and stop VMs during off hours. Now there are several different ways that we can implement this solution, so don't be turned off by the fact that it says off hours in case you don't actually have off hours in your business. Generally speaking, everyone has a test or development environment, and wouldn't it be really good if you had a way to be sure that all of those machines were powered off when people weren't there using them so that you weren't burning resources when you didn't have to? So there's multiple ways, as I said, to implement this solution. The most simplest way is just by a schedule. Second way that we're going to look at is by using tags. And the final way is going to be a little more involved, leveraging the Azure Monitor in order to view all of the performance metrics around our systems and have that do some of this automation work for us. So over on the right, we'll click the link for our prerequisites, and you can see here that we need to create an Azure Run As account, which I'll show you how to do. This is basically going to function as a service account that's going to do the work for us. And let's go down to the permissions section quickly. So in order to create a Run As account, we need global administrator rights because we're creating an Azure Active Directory service account. We'll also need to be a contributor on our subscription or an owner. Now there are several ways to implement this particular solution. We can do it from creating a log analytics workspace or an automation account, or we can do both at once. And that's the way I'm going to show you today. So we'll click our plus here and we'll go down to IT and Management Tools and then click on See All. And we'll change our publisher here to Microsoft, and then we'll click on Start Stop VMs during off hours. And here's where you can read all about the solution as well as what the requirements are. Then we'll hit Create. And at the top here, we'll click to add a new workspace. Now you can do this through an existing workspace. And if I do select that, you'll see over here on the left that an automation account has already been chosen for me. Now, why would this be? If we go over to that Azure Automation account and we scroll down in the blade to the bottom and then we go to Automation account, you can see here that my automation account has already been linked with this workspace. And you do this when you're using one of these three solutions for update management, change tracking, or starting and stopping your VMs. Now this particular one was set up when I did our video on update management, which you can go check out at the top right if you missed that, but I want to show you this process from scratch today. Back in our build, we'll click back on the workspace and we'll go to create a new one, and we'll call this automation-0-start-stop. We've got our subscription selected, and I'll also select an existing resource group called automation. And then we'll pick a region to deploy this in. I'll take East US. Then we have the pricing tier as pay as you go, which is just fine for me. So I'll hit OK there. And it's going to create that log analytics workspace in the background. And after a minute or two, that'll be complete. And we can go to the next step, which is to create an automation account. We'll click the plus for that, and I'll just give it the same name so I know that they're related to each other. And as we scroll down, we'll see Create Azure Run As Account is set to yes, and we cannot set it to no. That's because this is a requirement for this solution to work. And we'll click OK, and that'll take another moment. And now we have to configure our parameters for this solution. This is how we control the particular virtual machines that we want to start and stop. So the resource group target here starts off with a star, which means that we'll use all of them, but I'm going to get rid of that because the particular resource group that I want to use is called automation. And if there are any virtual machines within that resource group, or if you're using the star, it could be any VM anywhere that you want to exclude, you can put in their names with a comma separated value. And then we need our schedule. And this comes in two forms, the daily start time and the stop time. And I'll just set my VMs to start up at 10 p.m. and stop at 10 a.m. because I'm going to have these VMs running processing overnight. And then I have the option here to enable an email when this occurs, and I'll say yes for that, and I'll just put in my email address, and then I'll click OK. And there is a note here that it will take several minutes to provision this solution, so we can check back in the portal for the progress, and we'll hit create. So once your build is complete, you'll get an Azure Automation account and a Log Analytics workspace, and you'll also get a few other items. Most importantly, the runbooks, and this is where all the magic happens. And all of that is neatly packed into this solution that we have down here at the bottom. So we'll start with the solution, and it gives you a high-level view of what's gone on in the solution since it's run, which for me was actually a couple days ago. And on the left here, we've got a link to go right to the Log Analytics workspace. And we can also go under these solutions and see every solution that is packed into this workspace. I just have the one in this case, but here's a different workspace that I have that has several solutions loaded. And I don't believe there's a limit to how many you can have. And under the logs section, we've got some example queries that Log Analytics shows you now. And here's our automation account. And you can run the query sample here to view the historical job status. And then of course you can render this out into charts so you see what was started, created, and completed. That's all a good sign. If you have a job that is stopped, then that might be because something wasn't responding correctly or the job ran to the maximum time limit, which is 180 minutes. Back in the blade on the left, if we scroll all the way to the bottom, we can go to our automation account and then click the link here to go right over to the account itself. And you can see that we have 6 jobs that have completed. So we can see those runbooks that have been loaded into the solution. And we can see all of the jobs here and click on one of them here. And you can see that this particular job was a stop job. And if we click on the outputs, we can see some of the details around this job. And you can see here that was performing the stop on automation-0 and automation-1, and it was completed successfully. You can also view all of the logs together in the all logs view and see each step in the process. And back in the blade, we can go under shared resources to our schedules, and you can see our scheduled start and stop jobs here. Notice that they are in UTC time. So if you want them to be shown in your time zone, just go ahead and select that. And they are listed here alphabetically. So I'll pick United States Eastern time and then save that. And I'll do the same thing on the stop job. And not only have I reset the time zone, but I've also changed the scheduled time to 5 p.m. to start up. And I'll set the stop time to 11 p.m. and that'll conform to my business hours. And under connections, you can see the run as account that we're using for this solution. And then under the variables, there are a lot of variables, and these variables are going to help us in implementing this solution. And back in the blade, we've got the start stop VM section here as a related resource where you can go back to manage the solution directly, or you can click on this link, which will take you to the docs so you can see how you could update or remove the solution if you need to. and one final stop in here, and that would be modules. Now, the way automation works, just like dealing with any other kind of PowerShell environment, when you're going to do something, you need the appropriate modules in order to execute commands and functions. And so all of the modules that you need will be preloaded here for you, but if you needed to, you could always add new ones or update existing ones. And you could do that by clicking the Add module at the top, and then if you have the module, you could always upload it, or you can browse the gallery for any modules that you are looking for. So with that, let's go back to our runbooks. So this has been a few days ago since I first set this up, and so we've seen many successful jobs kicking off. But let's say that you wanted to give it a try right now. You can go up to Edit at the top and then go to the Test pane. My VMs are running right now, so I'm going to use the parameter to stop. Then we have a what if parameter, and this is if you just want to see what the code does without actually executing anything. And then for the VM list, we need the machines that we want this to execute against. So I'll just test this out on automation-1 and we'll click start. And we see that the job is queued, and we'll see the data show up here once it starts processing. And now you can see the job shows that it is running at the top here, and it is now complete. And if we look at our virtual machines, we can see automation-1 is in a deallocating state. And what deallocating means is it's gone from running to beginning to power off. And in just a moment, it'll go to stopped and deallocated. And there we go. It successfully has stopped. Now let's look at how we could do this in a few other ways. If we click on one of these VMs and we look at all of our tags, I've got two important ones for this exercise, and that is the sequence start stop and the shutdown time and startup time. Now the sequence tags have to do with when you have multiple virtual machines that are either in a cluster or in a group of some kind where you want them to turn on and off in a particular order. So I've assigned here automation 0 to be the first one that starts and the last one that stops. Back in the automation account, we'll scroll down on the blade and go to our schedules. And out of all of our runbooks, some of them are status on and others are off. So the one that we've been using so far, the very simple schedule VMs, are these two here in the middle. I'm going to turn these off now. And what we're going to do now is enable the sequenced start and stop VM. So we'll click on that, set it to enabled, pick a date on the future. I'll also set my time zone. And then if we scroll down, we can set this to reoccur every week or every day, just like we could on the other one. And I'll have this set for never expire, and we'll hit save. And then I'll repeat that on the sequence stop. And now we're ready to go. And we see both of our automation VMs are in a stopped state. And let's see what happens when our automation task runs. Back in our jobs, our sequence start stop parent has been queued. So let's click on that. And in the logs, we can see that the job is done quite a bit already. And if we go back, we can see that a child job has kicked off. And this is the child job that will start our virtual machines. And our child job is running, and it's going to start VM 0 here. So if we go back to our VMs and we refresh, we see that our automation-0 VM is in an updating state. So that'll be running in just a second. And you see that automation-1 has not started at all. That's the benefit of using the sequence tag. I get to control the order that they start and stop in. Back in our runbook job log, we can see that automation 1 has started successfully. And if we go back and refresh, yes, it is indeed running. So this is how you can control your VMs using a tag, but there is another way that we could do this as well. So remember, I had another tag here that was shut down and a startup tag here as well. Now for this, we need to do a little bit of custom PowerShell. Back in the automation account, we'll create some new runbooks. We'll call this first one tags start VMs, and it's a PowerShell runbook, and we'll create that. And I'll paste in some PowerShell code that I've written, and first 7 lines is to connect into our Azure Automation account. Line 9 will get all of the VMs that match our tag for 8 a.m. start. Line 10 will then start all of those virtual machines, and then line 11 will give us their names. We'll hit save on that code, and then we'll go and publish that runbook. Then we'll go back and create another runbook, and this will be called tags stop VMs, and we'll make this a PowerShell runbook as well. And the first 7 lines of this code are all the same. Line number 9, we're getting the tags of 8 p.m. stop, passing that to line number 10 to force the stop of those VMs, and then writing out their names. So we'll hit save on that, and then we'll open the test pane and hit start. Now our virtual machines are still in a running state, so this should power them off for us in just a moment. And we've been authenticated, so if we go back and check our VMs, just refresh the screen here, we've got VM0 deallocating. And that first job succeeded. So if we go back and refresh, we've got VM0 fully stopped and number 1 is deallocating now. And VM number 1 has also stopped completely. And back in the job, we can see that they both completed successfully, and there's the names of our 2 VMs. And then we can publish this code now as well. And just like we did before, we can create schedules for these as well. So now you've got 3 different methods that you can use: the regular schedule to start and stop, a sequence start using a tag, or you can use any other tag that you want through some custom PowerShell code. And the last way that we can execute this is around CPU utilization. So in the blade, if we scroll down a little bit and go back to our variables, and I'll do a filter here, and we'll search for external auto stop. So these variables can all be edited to whatever's going to work in your environment, but basically what we're looking at is the CPU percentage being less than 5% over the period of time that we are analyzing, which is over 5-minute frequency check. Then we will shut down the virtual machine. And you can go in and edit any of these just by clicking on it and changing your threshold value from 5% here to, let's say, 10%. So if we scroll back up to our runbooks and then we look for the auto stop create alert parent, and that's going to spawn the create alert child runbooks as it processes. And just as we did before, we can go into the runbook, we can go to edit to see all of the code and even run this in a test pane. So we'll go back and then revert to our published version so that we didn't save any changes. And if we go back to the schedules, there is already a schedule for the auto stop create alert parent. And since we're going to use a different method here, we're going to turn off our sequenced VM jobs. And now we'll enable the schedule auto stop create alert parent. And just like before, I'll set it for sometime in the future with whatever time zone I would like. And I will set this as a reoccurring job every hour, and we'll hit save for that. And with our variables configured and our schedule set, the only thing we need to do is wait for the job to kick off. Now, one thing I'll mention while the job is queuing up is that these jobs all run in the Azure Automation account, which is a platform service in Azure. Just because you start the job at 3 o'clock does not mean that the job runs at 3 o'clock. It means the job goes to queue. And you see, because we have 2 virtual machines in our environment, we've spawned 2 child jobs. And those child jobs are now going to start looking at the metrics around our virtual machine. So if we go back to the VMs real quick, what we're analyzing in this case is the CPU average. And we're going to watch it over the next several minutes. And if it does not meet that threshold that we set, which was 10% of usage, then it's going to see that the VMs can be shut down. And you see at the moment, we're not even using a full percent of CPU, so these VMs should power off for us. So you can see from the timestamps that our parent job had kicked off and started our child jobs to create our alerts, which then analyzed our VMs over the next 5 minutes. Realizing that the VMs were not meeting the threshold requirements, the VMs have powered off. So this is not only a great solution to help you to start and stop your virtual machines, but also to help you to control some of your costs in Azure. And this is just the beginning, because with Azure Automation and Runbooks, we can do basically anything that you want when they can all be scheduled. You can import the modules that you need in order to do those jobs, and then leverage the variables so that you can have multiple different parameter sets for all different kinds of jobs, leveraging automation to make managing the cloud easier. I hope that you've enjoyed looking at Azure Automation and a way to step up your game in the cloud and how you can leverage that for multiple processes. And today, of course, we focused on stopping and starting your VMs in multiple ways. This is, as I said, just the beginning, and you can take this anywhere that you want. The sky's the limit. So if you appreciated this video or learned something new, go ahead and hit that thumbs up and let me know. Now, if you haven't subscribed yet to the Azure Academy, What are you waiting for? Go ahead and click that big red button and join us here at our community where we're all just trying to learn more about Azure. And you can get an email to notify you when our newest videos come out, which is roughly once a week, by clicking that notification bell. And I really want to hear from you, so give me some comments down below about some questions that you have about today's topic or anything else that you're interested in around Azure, especially if you have recommendations for new videos. I'm always looking for ideas. And if you want to keep on learning, over here on the right, we've got our latest video and one that we picked out specially for you so you can enjoy those. Thanks for watching our video today, and we will catch you in the next one. Happy learning.